our Christmas game review series, let's talk about The Grinch.
The Grinch!
No, not the Ron Howard film, though one could have quite the conversation about that film.
Hello, Walter.
Kiss me, you fool.
No, I'm talking about the Grinch video game for the PlayStation 1. But first, a little background info. The Grinch was initially a children's book written by Theodore Seuss Geisel, better known by his pen name Dr. Seuss, which was published back in 1957. The Grinch later went on to receive more public exposure when director Chuck Jones, of the Looney Tunes fame, created the 1966 animated special Dr. Seuss How the Grinch Stole Christmas, which has since become a holiday classic. Then, years later, Hollywood apparently felt that the animated special wasn't good enough to represent Seuss's characters, so they got Ron Howard to direct a live-action version starring Jim Carrey as the mean one himself. That film got a little bit of a mixed reception, though personally I didn't think it was half as bad as that god-awful Cat in the Hat film that followed 3 years later. Anyway, when the Ron Howard film was released, Universal naturally chose to release a game based on the film, and the game saw a release on the PlayStation and even the Dreamcast. There was also a version for the N64 in the works, but that was cancelled for unknown reasons. I wonder why. The game revolves around the Grinch trying to ruin the Christmas season for the citizens of Whoville. Now, you'd figure that a game based on Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas would involve the Grinch, I don't know, trying to steal Christmas, right?
Wrong-o.
Instead, the game is based on one moment from the film that gets expanded upon. There's a scene in the live-action film where the Grinch heads down to Whoville in order to play pranks on the Whos, and that's pretty much the main focus of this game. The Grinch heads down to 4 different locations with a list of missions to complete. In order to help the Grinch complete these missions, he'll need certain gadgets to get the job done. The blueprints for these gadgets must be collected in each level and then assembled back at Mount Crumpet. However, thanks to poor controls and bad level design, the Grinch is a nightmare to play through. As mentioned before, the game drops you into 4 different areas with a list of objectives to complete. Some tasks are easy to finish, like crushing snowmen, burning down Christmas trees, and smashing tents. But more often than not, you'll find yourself unsure about how you can complete certain objectives. Some of the missions naturally require a gadget in order to complete, or another object that you'll find in the area. The gadgets you'll be building are the rotten egg launcher, which can launch out rotten eggs, the binoculars, which just basically make you see things through a sort of scope view, the rocket spring, which can allow you to jump to higher up ledges, the slime shooter, which can shoot slime, the octopus climbing device, which just has you climbing up structures, the marine mobile, which is like a submarine that you can use in one area to explore the deep sea, and finally the Grinch copter. In order to build the gadgets, like I said before, you need to find the blueprints. However, most of the blueprints are hidden within the context of the other missions you'll be completing. For instance, in the second level, the game wants you to place beehives into cabins. So in order to do that, you'll need to have built the rocket spring in order to jump up onto the roofs of the cabin. And to do that, you have to search around the area first and find those blueprints. Then, once you complete that mission, you can enter the cabins and find the blueprints for the slime shooter, which you'll need in order to do the later mission, sliming the mayor's skis. So if you didn't complete the beehive into the cabins quest first, you wouldn't have obtained the slime shooter blueprints, and you wouldn't have been able to build it, and thus you wouldn't have been able to complete the slime the mayor's ski quest. As you make your way through the game, you might find it hard to complete any missions, which can make all of the other missions impossible to complete as well. Another big problem with the game is how there's no clear way of telling what you can and can't interact with. For instance, you'll go into the basement of City Hall and find yourself in a room with seemingly nothing to do, but wait a minute, what's this? You can move these things on the wall? Oh, they're filing cabinets? And the blueprints for the binoculars are in there? Oh, well, that's nice. If you never knew that you could go onto the walls and that these were filing cabinets and that you could pull them open, you would never have found the blueprints for the binoculars. I mean, what's telling me that I can open up these cabinets? And also, not all of these cabinets open, so, I mean, what if I try the one cabinet that doesn't open and I just assume none of them can? Then in another mission, you have to somehow stop a dog from chasing you outside of a yard in order to slime the mayor's skis, and you probably think you can stun him with a gadget like the rotten egg launcher or the slime shooter. But no, that would be too easy. Now, instead, you have to shoot snow that's hanging off the roof of a house and cover the dog with it, which will then make a timer show up, allowing you to then slime the mayor's skis. I mean, how the hell am I supposed to know that I can hit that piece of snow? It looks like it's part of the environment. Then in the dumps, there's a quest for you to connect 10 pipes together. And the first one you're likely going to run into is this big one that the Grinch can simply push in. So naturally, you'll then spend the rest of your time there searching for pipes that look just like this, only to find nothing. Because, as it turns out, this is the only pipe in the level that looks like this. The other pipes are tiny as hell and they're attached to steam vents, and you have to swing on them in order to connect them. Again, how in the hell am I supposed to know that you can swing on these pipes? And why would I be looking for small green pipes when I pushed in a large pipe? Why change what it looks like? Why not have them all like these big pipes that I can just push right in? Or if you're going to have them be the little pipes that I can swing on, why not like highlight them better so I know I can do that? Then there's another level where you have to climb up platforms inside of a cave, only to find that you can't reach the platforms, and you'll try the rocket spring and get nowhere. Instead, you have to actually shoot the ice that's on the ceiling in order to make platforms that you can climb up. And, I really hate to sound like a broken record here, but how in the hell am I supposed to know to do that? I mean, you could try all day trying to jump up there, and I would never think, oh, maybe I have to shoot the ice that's hanging on the ceiling. I could continue for another hour listing all of the things you're never sure you can interact with, but I think you kind of get the idea by now. Another problem coming from this whole I don't know what I can interact with thing is that the game is most likely aimed at children. I mean, what kid is gonna figure this stuff out? I mean, I sure as hell didn't when I first played this game as a kid. I mean, The Grinch is probably easy by today's standards since you can just look up a guide or watch a walkthrough, but back when this game first came out in 2000, you were pretty much on your own. I mean, even the Grinch knows how terrible this game is.
No child can beat the Grinch!
If you actually managed to beat this game as a kid back when it first came out with no outside help whatsoever, then I think you deserve a medal. Hell, take 2 medals just for getting through it. The horror continues on with the controls, as in the first level when the game tries to explain to you how to swing on poles. The game shows you one pole and it looks easy enough to just swing and land on the platform. You'll either find yourself not jumping high enough or not landing on the platform for some reason. And this happens throughout the game with most of the pole swinging mechanics. I had to cheat at one point and use the rocket spring to land on top of a tree, which I wasn't supposed to do, and then jump again onto the platform that I would have swung onto.
Well, that worked out nicely.
Then there are the enemies that you can barely deal with. At the beginning of the game, you have to rely on the Grinch's bad breath to kill enemies, but that doesn't always work as enemies are often moving around and they're never in line with your breath. Once you get the rotten egg launcher, you can deal with enemies a little bit easier, but there's still another big problem with combat. The game has no after hit detection, meaning that when enemies hit you, instead of becoming invisible for a quick second, nothing will happen, causing the enemy to hit you over and over again, leading to a quick death. Now that dying has a big penalty, as all that happens is that the Grinch is brought back to the beginning of the level. After completing all of the missions, the game seems to finally remember that there's actually more to the story of the Grinch than him just hating the Who's. It's at this point that the game asks you to find 5 sleigh parts so the Grinch can steal Christmas. And on a bit of an interesting side note, how come this wasn't the main goal of the game, like finding sleigh parts? It would have been much more fun using all of the gadgets already built to go around these 4 levels and find sleigh parts, rather than find blueprints to then build gadgets to just sort of cause mayhem for the Who's. And don't even get me started on how you assemble the blueprints together, especially for the last 2 gadgets, because let's just say I wasted more time than I should have. And what do you get to do after building the sleigh? Well, you enter the final mission. And of course, you must face the most evil boss in video game history. The Dark One. The unspeakable terror that is Santa Claus. Yes, you have to steal presents from Santa and then shoot him out of his sleigh. I guess that was part of Dr. Seuss's original book, How the Grinch Stole 10 Presents and Killed Santa. And then you get the famous scene where the Who's begin singing without any of their presents. And say what you will about the song from the cartoon and even the live-action version of that song, those are both masterpieces compared to what this game makes that song sound like. And the presentation is a big mess even for a PlayStation game. Issues of clipping, slow frame rate, draw distance issues, and glitches. One glitch had me dying while trying to charge up my rocket spring, and then when I restarted the level, I could still hear the charge up noise, despite me not even having the gadget equipped. Another glitch had me walking around with the animation for the Grinch getting electrocuted still attached to me as I walked around. And the final glitch was that the sound cut out at one point, and then the game froze up, causing me to have to restart and lose about an hour's worth of work. Considering that only happened once in my entire playthrough, could have been worse. The game will also take you about 7 hours to complete, or at least it did for me. Granted, I had to use a guide to get through most of this game. If you were on your own, I'm gonna say it would probably take you about 3 times that length. The camera is another issue to deal with. It never is facing the way you want it to, and more often than not, it spastically moves around at the worst possible moment. Unlike in this section where you have to jump on fan blades. Getting onto the first fan blade is terrible enough, but then trying to get off and then walking onto the platform when you've reached the end is even worse, because the minute you step off of the fan blade, the camera automatically shifts into a new position, and I fell off twice. The one bright spot to the presentation is probably the soundtrack, which is actually pretty good throughout. Overall, The Grinch is a... Wait, you know what? I got a better way of summing this up. Dr. Seuss style. This game is bad, no fun to be had, crappy controls that just make me mad. Plenty of missions where I don't know what to do, so when I enter a new level, I feel royally screwed. Glitches and flaws around every turn. Basic game design, these developers didn't learn. Watch the live-action film, the cartoon that's a holiday hit. But don't play the Grinch game, 'cause it's a pile of shit. So enjoy your holidays, all you girls and guys. Now if you please excuse me, I'm off to play Grand Theft Auto 5.